and other renowned renowned establishments, right? Now, before we start, I think it's worth just introducing the folks in the chat. So, if anyone wants to like share their name, where they're from, what their occupation is, right? What do you work as? I think it'll help build a very interactive, fun little session, right? So, can folks in the webinar share their names and where they're from and what line of work do they do? You can add it in the chat. I'll also add mine just to start things, right? I'm Richard. I'm from India and I am a product head. Anyone else? Okay. Sneha, how many folks are there in the webinar right now? Sneha, you're on mute if you're speaking. Okay. Okay. So you guys can also share your names as well as your experiences, right? But anyway, let's start. Let's start with the webinar. So the first question uh, I would like to ask, right, is before we get into the depths of digital transformation, it's worth trying to at least interrogate digital transformation, right? So, uh, can anyone tell me, is this scanning paper documents into PDFs, right? Would this be classed or considered as digital transformation? You can add yes or no in the chat, right? So that it's uh, easy to start off. What do you think is scanning paper documents into PDFs? Would that be considered digital transformation? So by default, you would not uh, consider something like scanning papers into documents, PDFs, right? What about using email instead of postal mail, right? Would that be considered digital transformation? Most likely not, right? So you would not consider something like moving from postal service to an email service as digital transformation. But what about a coffee shop, right? A coffee shop tries to build their own very own customer mobile app, right? Like a local shop that has decided to build a mobile app so that they can redeem their points. They can give a lot of rewards every time a user comes and purchases their coffee, right? Would that be considered digital transformation? Yeah. So by default, this is what digital transformation is, right? When you try to fundamentally change the business operations of your establishment using digital tools and services, right? Using cloud, AI, and other digital developments. That's where digital transformation comes into the picture, right? So, uh, if you were to look for the definition of digital transformation, this is what it says, right? So, use digital technologies to fundamentally change how a business operates, delivers value to customers, and adapts to changing market needs. So, essentially, it's like the coffee shop example, right? Where you have a coffee shop that's been doing business the age-old analog way, trying to introduce a mobile app, right, to keep track of purchases, to keep track of redemption points, all of this, right? Or deliver value to customers and adapt to changing market environments, right? But there is a big difference between digital transformation and digitization, right? So when you're just moving from analog information to digital format, It's called digitization, right? As we saw in the earlier examples. When you're just moving from email to or a postal service to an email, or if you're just scanning all your paper documents to PDFs, that's basically digitization. But when you're completely revamping or fundamentally relooking the operations of your business, right, into a digital format, that's where digital transformation comes into place, right? So, yeah, I if there are any doubts or any questions, you can just add it in the chat, right? I would like for this uh, entire class to be interactive and engaging and fun, right? So, if there are any doubts, you can let me know in the chat itself. Okay. So now that we know what digital transformation is and what the difference between digitization and digital transformation is, right? I think it's worth looking at the different forms or different ways in which uh, companies all over the world have used digital transformation to really change their businesses, right? This There are different ways to approach it, right? And there are infinite ways, to be honest, but there are few common categories that you'll notice in the industry, right? And I've picked out four specific categories, and for each category, one example, right? So the different forms of digital transformation, I've picked out four of them. First is John Deere, Lego, Adobe, and Netflix, right? So now that we have a few folks in chat, can anyone in chat tell me what do you think the big digital transformation had occurred in Netflix? Anyone wants to add that as a point? Yes, Alex. The recording will be available, and also we'll give you brochures, and if possible, I'll also share the presentation as well, right? So that you can go back at a later time, analyze the presentation as well. Okay. So yeah, in the chat, uh, can anyone tell me uh, what was the large digital transformation that Netflix initiated? Can anyone uh, like try and point that out in chat? We have around 12 folks. That's wonderful. Or any of these, right? If you want to give a shot at Adobe or Lego or John Deere, right? Any of these examples, do you can you tell me what these companies, right, initiated a process of digital transformation through what, right? What was the digital transformation did they do that really enhanced their reputation? Or, for example, any other company that you would like to or you have thought of, right? A company that that went through a process of digital transformation. Can anyone share any suggestions or any interesting stories? You can post it in the chat, right? Okay. So let me start off by the first one. As I mentioned, you're right. Uh, let's start off with Netflix. So, Netflix essentially a long time back, right? They started in 1997, Netflix.com. And the main business of Netflix was renting movies. They would rent CDs and DVDs to uh, movie lovers, right? And so that became the alternative to going to the cinema or even getting cassette tapes or series, purchasing them. Now you could rent movies through Netflix, right? And they had a bunch of different subscription models and things like that. And using just this model, they reached 6.3 million subscribers by 2006, right? Which was a huge achievement. But at certain point, their growth sort of stagnated, right? They were not getting a lot of new subscriptions and things were not moving as rapidly as early on. So in 2007, they launched a direct streaming service, which we all know right now as Netflix, right? The Netflix that we know right now. That's not how they started off. They started off as a CD, DVD rental service. And in 2007, they completely pivoted to this model of direct streaming, right? So that you can just go to netflix.com on the web, and you can put in your login information and start watching movies or shows, right? When they started off this, and when they started off in 2007, they had only 1,000 movies in the beginning, right? And by the within 10 years, they had already crossed 100 million subscribers all over the world. They started off only in a small part of US, and now they are a global player, right? With a valuation of more than $250 billion. So they had to have some sort of signal, right? They had to have some sort of information to sort of decide that they wanted to pivot. They wanted to pivot from just a movie rental company that sells you CDs, DVDs, rents CDs and DVDs into a live streaming service or a direct streaming service, right? And the metric, the information that the main signal that they looked at was of internet, the average internet speeds in the US, right? So in 1997, the average internet speed in the US was around 126 kilobytes per second, right? Very slow, where it would take a good minute to load even a website, right? But as time passed on, the average internet speed went from the single digit MBs to now being in the double and triple digit MBs, right? Extremely fast 5G networks, right? Internet service providers. And what they noticed is that if we could just harness that internet, right, and leverage the internet, and also the internet in the beginning was only segmented to a very rich set of audience, right? People with a lot of discretionary income, people with a lot of money. But with time, a lot of people, right? Most middle class and upper middle class individuals started to get access to the internet in their home and in their offices. And that's where Netflix identified their opportunity, right? And they pivoted to a model where they moved from movie rentals to direct streaming, right? So that essentially was the story of Netflix, right? And what that gave Netflix, they looked at it and the catch line, right, is from 1 week to 1 minute. It would take more than a week for a CD to be delivered or a DVD or a movie to be delivered from the Netflix stores to your house, right? Just like any delivery service. And that sort of went from 1 week to 1 day, right? So that was one of the largest salient points when pivoting. Also, now they had the opportunity to move direct to customers, right? Initially, you would have to have a lot of middlemen where you had different shops that they would provide the service to, and those shops would store all the DVDs, and the DVDs would be transported to shops, right? So they at that point they didn't even need these middlemen. They could directly go to customers, right, through the internet, right? So the next, any questions up till here, guys? Any questions you can ask in the chat? If not, we can move ahead. And at any point, if you feel like I'm boring, or if I'm just not engaging, also let me know. Okay, that'll also be cool. Yeah. So now let's move on to Adobe. If you know Adobe, they are the ones who created Photoshop, right? The very popular photo editing software. They also have other suites, other software in their software suite, right? It's called Adobe Creative Cloud. They have Premiere Pro for video editing. They have Acrobat for PDF editing, a bunch of these, right? So they made a very interesting pivot, again based on the same information. They looked at this internet speed as well as the internet penetration into households, and they made a different decision. They started off in 1982, where they would license software to Apple, right? Apple, the laptop electronics company. And uh, in 1997, they acquired their first large-scale commercial software called Photoshop. And if folks who are in chat, they might, if they remember, you would have to buy a CD, a disc, uh, to use Photoshop, right? You wouldn't find Photoshop in the internet. You would have to go to a store, buy the Photoshop CD, and then download the software, and then you can use Photoshop, right? So they saw the same internet penetration. They saw the same metrics and the same trends in the internet market as well as the PC markets. And they decided to make a very, very big shift because their revenues were stagnant, right? Only certain amount of people would buy a new version of Photoshop, right? And every time you had Photoshop, you would rarely ever see any great updates, right? So they decided to go from this model where they would sell CDs in stores and you could download it in your PC, in your laptop or your computer to a subscription model, online subscription model, right? So what they did is smartly, they said to all customers, if you want to access Photoshop, you need to download Creative Cloud from the internet. And this Photoshop is now always connected to the internet, right? So every time when you make a payment to access Photoshop, you either get a yearly subscription or a monthly subscription. So by the end of the year subscription, it automatically gets renewed to the next year, right? So they use digital transformation in the payment service, in the payments way users make payments, right? Netflix used digital transformation to disrupt distribution, like how information is shared, right? How movies were shared. Adobe made strides in digital transformation through payments, right? How people make payments for a service rather than doing a one-time payment, they've initiated online subscription model, right? And they were the first in the entire world to initiate this sort of digital subscription model, right? Now the third one is Lego. Any questions up till now? You can put it in the chat and I'll take it up. Okay. So the third one is digital transformation in marketing. So this is a very interesting case study, right? Where uh, you had this legacy platform or a legacy brand called Lego. Like if you've seen Lego, there are these bricks, toys where you connect these bricks into different configurations and create fun little things, right? So, and this was a very old legacy company. But in 1995, just generally all over the world, a lot of toy companies were struggling because a lot of people were moving away from physical toys to digital games, right? A lot of kids started to get enamored by digital games, digital entertainment, right? That includes me, right? I was one of them. And in those 10 years, right, between 1995 to 2005, Lego really struggled when it comes to generating revenue, building brand recognition, things like that. They were having a very difficult time. But in 2005, they made a very savvy decision. They decided to license the Lego brand and the Lego intellectual property, right? The design of Lego, the way it is structured, things like that. And had a partnership with Star Wars. Star Wars, this franchise, international franchise of like intergalactic warfare, right? They decided to uh, have a partnership with Star Wars. And as soon as they had this partnership, uh, there was a huge upswing. There was a huge upswing in brand awareness. That's number one. And second, even the toy sales, right? The number of toys that was sold started to grow exponentially. And because of the brand awareness and the license, they started to create movies on the Lego experience, right? They had their own Lego world, which is like an amusement park. They added their own Lego movies, right? Where they partnered with Warner Brothers. And as they added more and more partnerships through these digital services, right, like movies, video games, they saw a huge uprise in their brand awareness as well as the number of collectibles, right? So people started to collect Legos and Lego sets, and this hit a crescendo like in the late 2015 or 2018, where they released the Batman movie, right? The Lego Batman movie, which was a super hit blockbuster, right, in Hollywood, and you would see a lot of hype around Lego and Lego sets, right? And it has been growing ever since. It has been growing ever since. So this is how Lego used digital transformation in the field of marketing, right? Any questions? Okay. Okay. So, um, and the final example is John Deere. John Deere, you might not be super aware, but it's not just when it comes to distribution or brand awareness um, or payment system or even marketing, right? You can use digital transformation in the day-to-day business operations and the way your products are built, right? You can use digital transformation in your products itself, right? And that's what John Deere did. John Deere is a legacy brand who builds tractors and agricultural goods and services, right? Like machinery, used in farming and grazing, right? So they went for and completely transformed their product suite into everything digital, right? Now, their tractors and their farming equipment contains a huge number of sensors. This is also known as Internet of Things or IoT. You might have heard of it, right? These contain huge number of sensors where all the information about the farmland, the heat, moisture, humidity, everything is stored in these systems. Now, because they're stored in these systems, they can identify any patterns that might cause harm to the farmland, to the soil, to the crop, to the plants, right? And they can automatically alert the necessary people to make changes to the environment or make changes to the grazing land and things like that, right? So they've completely digitized their product portfolio, and again, they are prosperous, right? As you can see in the S&P 500, right? They're a US public company. So now I think we've seen examples of how companies have used digital transformation to uh, improve or um, to increase their revenue or to improve customer experience or to improve operations, right? But I think the best way to learn why digital transformation or just purely looking at how you can use technology to improve your business, the best way to learn is by identifying a cautionary tale, right? So a company that had everything to go ahead with transformation and chose not to, and the consequences of it, right? So, before that, again, like mentioned, any questions, any doubts, guys? Okay. So, a cautionary tale of this transformation, right? So, this is a small, short little case study on Kodak. So, if you are not aware, Kodak is this very famous company, right? Who were the first ones to build uh, one second. Who were the first ones who were the inventors of the digital camera, right? So previously, if you ever seen an old camera, they used to use these chemical films. They used to use these rolls. The rolls contained a very thin filament on which light hits the filament and the picture is sort of transmuted into it, right? So these were chemical films that were used for almost a century, right? When it comes to photography, even for black and white photography as well as color photography. and Kodak, they were the pioneers of the early version of the camera. But in 1975, uh, a smart engineer in Kodak invented the digital camera, right? That was the first time you could uh, use a camera without a film, without any additional chemical component, right? Rather than that, everything was digitized. But uh, because their main business of Kodak, right? Uh, the central uh, avenue for profit generation for Kodak was the digital films, right? Even the camera, they would sell it at very low margins, right? Without much profit. But the money they would make was from these cells and these films, right? These film boxes. Because of that, they decided to not invest more in the digital camera. And they kept focusing on this film-based cameras, right? Film-based equipment, and they kept continuing this for years and years and years, even after the boom of the internet, even after the boom of the smartphone, right? And this is what happened. Now, in 1975, they came up with a digital camera. They even in 2000s, right? They kept the digital camera as a side project with small products, right? But in 2010, between this, the iPhone was launched in 2008. The Android was launched a little bit after, somewhere around 2009. But Instagram launched in 2010, right? And in only 2 years, right, from 2010 to 2012, Instagram was acquired by Facebook for $1 billion, while Kodak filed for bankruptcy. This is a legacy company, a 100-year-old company, right, that filed for bankruptcy. And this is what happens when you don't pivot, when you don't focus on the most common technological trends as they are flourishing, right? Uh, Basically, the line is if you don't transform, others will disrupt you, right? And that's the nature of the beast, right? That is how our industry works, right? So, this was sort of the main cautionary tale when it comes to digital transformation. Now, I would like for like the entire group if we can collaboratively work on an interactive session, right? So just like we spoke about Domino's, we spoke about Kodak, we can take another case study, right? And this time uh, we can look at Domino's. But before that, I would like to know if you guys want to do this interactive session, right? So in the chat, can anyone, will people ask, say yes if you want to do this interactive session? Otherwise, we can completely skip this section. Sneha, am I audible? I'm audible, right? Sneha? In the chat, can anyone tell me, am I audible? Okay, okay. Awesome. So, Alex, do you want to go through this interactive session on Domino's, or should I directly explain the Domino's case study? Uh, okay, so let's do one thing. I'll quickly introduce the case study, right, with Domino's. So, yeah. So let's say uh, you and I, right, in the chat, all of us are the board of directors at Domino's, right? And Domino's again is a very prominent company in the United States. They sell pizza, they sell pizzas, right? And they have a chain of pizza shops. Now, in 2005, uh, Before, even between the early 2000s to 2008, right? Pizza Hut was facing a lot of backlash. You could see reviews of the pizza, like the pizza tastes like cardboard, the website is terrible, the pizza arrived cold, late, and cheese was like rubber, right? These were uh, very common pushback that the Domino's pizza uh, got, right? And they had a lot of very low customer sat. CSAT is considered customer satisfaction, right? The customer satisfaction for Domino's was extremely low, and a lot of pressure was piling up because everyone who ate from Domino's really hated it, right? And at the same time, you had competition that was flourishing, like this is Domino's, but the competition was mostly Pizza Hut and other such pizza companies, right? So the the pressure was piling up on Domino's so much that the stock price was taking a hit, right? From 2005 to 2008, and the stock price was just plummeting down slowly, steadily, and it was dying a slow death, right? So if you and I, all of us in this group, right? If all of us were part of the Domino's board of directors, right? What what would be the first steps, right? What would you do to revive this legendary brand? Could anyone uh, like put it in the chat? Could anyone like take a guess or try to think of a way we could transform Pizza Hut into again a prominent, flourishing company? Okay, so anyway, uh, what I'll do is rather than uh, sort of me doing the activity alone, right? I'll quickly go through what they did, right? And like give you an example of a very well structured digital transformation case, right? So the executives at Domino's, they essentially came out, right? They were very honest with their customers. They were very honest with everyone, and they put out a very aggressive campaign. That we are sorry. The CEO of Domino's, right? He would go and do interviews on every channel, right? Admitting that they were wrong, that their pizza does not taste good, right? That their services were not up to the mark, that their delivery mechanisms were not good enough, right? So they took the criticism head on and they started working on a long-term strategy, that was in line with the trends in society, right? Like there was now mobile usage had increased substantially after 2008, where everyone had a mobile phone, a smartphone, right? Essentially a computer in the palm of their hands, and the internet, everyone had internet on their phone, so making deliveries, online delivery was much easier, right? So they could see all these trends very clearly, and the CEO as well as the entire Domino's management took a few very clear, concise steps to make an improvement to the entire process of Domino's as well as the pizza making, right? One thing to keep in mind when it comes to any sort of transformation for any business is you cannot ignore the actual product, the thing that you're selling. You can sell it on the phone, you can sell it on the internet, you can sell it as a TV ad, you can sell it as a billboard. But if your product is not good enough, then no one is going to buy it, right? So they first and foremost focused on the quality of the pizza, right? Keeping in mind the time it takes to create the pizza, right? So they've really spent a lot of time trying to perfect the pizza that can be made at the shortest amount of time. The second thing that they really focused on is the amount of time it takes to deliver a product, a pizza, right? So they came up with a very famous campaign called 30 minutes delivery or you get your money back, right? Money back guarantee. This was one of the most famous ad campaigns in the world, right? The amount of buzz it created in every country, in every language is insane. So much so that this became the expectation from every brand: 30-minute delivery or money back guarantee, right? That's the second thing that they focused on. They then launched a mobile app that was extremely intuitive, extremely user friendly, and made sure that this is where they brought up a lot of innovation, right? Domino's was the first product where you could get live tracking. Sorry. So when you purchase a pizza from one of the Domino's stores, you can see where the delivery person is at all times, right? So that you are assured that your pizza is arriving in 30 minutes, right? So that was another innovation. And as time passes, they keep adding more and more innovative touch points, right? Now you can enable voice ordering. You can just talk to your phone, tell what you want, and it'll order for you, right? And they're also adding Domino's voice ordering on Amazon Alexa and these other new forms of communication, right? Not just the smartphone, right? So, and finally, they really leverage data science and data analytics to build targeted marketing, right? Targeted marketing and targeted analysis, right? So, uh, and once they sort of focus their attention on the technical side, the technological side, and also focused on their product, they pretty much internally call themselves a tech companies that just makes pizza, right? That essentially became their motto. That essentially became their leverage. And now they are essentially one of the largest food companies in the world, right? And there are these three main key takeaways from the Domino's case study. The first one is be brutally honest with your customers, right? Any sort of transformation without understanding your customers, it is pretty pointless, right? You don't want to build a product that is ahead of its time that no one uses. Right? So first thing they did is brutally understood their customers and took their feedback and worked on it. The second thing is they focused on their product first, right? They focused on the quality of the product and then look to leverage technological advances, right? And build around those digital experiences. The third thing is, like most companies right now, you tend to build your product, but then outsource all the technical side, right? They invested heavily in their own technical team, right? Their own technical team. And they never obfuscated that. They never just outsourced it to other departments because it created a vertical integration, right? They had access to all the data, they had access to all the tools internally. They can make decisions faster, right? So this was essentially the learnings from Domino's, and after that, of course, they grew. A huge part of their sales comes from the mobile app, right? So the fact that they invested in the early 2000s, the early 2010s, now they are a giant when it comes to online transactions, right, of pizzas, and they are the largest pizza chain in the world. Right? So that essentially was the the Domino's case study. Now, before we go to the quiz, right? I've created a small little quiz. Before we go there, I think we can take a look at uh, the digital transformation brochure, right? So now that we've spoken about why digital transformation is important, what happens if you don't really harness digital transformation in your businesses, how it has had impacted Kodak and these other legacy brands, right? And what are the different forms of digital transformation? You can use digital transformation for marketing, like Lego did. You can use digital marketing in distribution, like how Netflix did. You can use digital marketing in payments, like Adobe did with their subscription model, and even day-to-day execution, right? Now that we have a brief understanding of why it's important, I think it's worth taking a look at the entire 8-week course, right? And how the course is sort of divided into modules and what do you get from it, right? So essentially, the 8 weeks are sort of broken down, right, into modules, as you can see, right? The early part of it is around strategic importance of digital transformation, like we spoke, right? We go into even more details, right? And then we look at the technological foundations for leaders, right? What are the essential technological features of digital transformation, like cloud computing, AI, things like that, right? Then we look at the roadmap because any transformation requires clear planning, right? And if you don't have a roadmap, it becomes very difficult to execute. Okay. We then go into role of leadership and digital transformation because it's very difficult to uh, transition from whatever is the current state of affairs, right? Current way of business to a new way of business, right? It requires real strong leadership, and that requires some temperament, right? And how it is to be built. Then we look at success and failure in digital transformation, like I've done in this session. We then look at customer experience, just like Domino's, right? Understanding your customers becomes very important. Without understanding customers, just digital transformation makes no sense, right? So how do you understand customer experience, right? That becomes a very key component. Uh, then we look at industry specific digital transformations and the future of digital transformation. This is where we touch upon AI and machine learning and computer vision and virtual reality, augmented reality. How these new forms uh, of digital experiences can be leveraged into your business, right? And how can you transition your business from the earlier paradigms that would be mobile and laptop to these new paradigms, which is just speech, right? You can just talk and take an order, or you can just look at your screen on your glasses, and a lot of the information is visible to you, right? So that essentially is the course structure. uh, some key points to keep in mind again, uh, if you are a senior manager and if you're a manager of any kind in your company, right, this becomes a key differentiating factor, especially when it comes to leadership, right? Everyone wants strong leaders who can take their company to the next level. And this course is really dedicated to doing that, to giving you a key leverage and taking you through the process of transforming whichever company you're working for to its next level, right? To its next iteration. Uh, Again, there are some details for each of these modules. Each of these modules are broken down into certain sub-modules, right? So sub-modules, again, very straightforward, like I mentioned, right? Introduction to digital marketing, digital transformation, the key drivers and the key trends, like I mentioned, right? As the internet penetration increased, a lot of these companies moved from uh, analog to the internet, right? That was one trend that they observed. Netflix observed, Adobe observed, a lot of different companies, even Instagram observed, right? Facebook and so. So identifying these trends is very crucial, right? In strategic importance of the digital transformation, you look at competitive advantages, right? How you build competitive advantages. It's also called as a moat, right? Building a moat of your business such that just a new incumbent cannot come and take your lunch money, right? And just build what you built quickly and take advantage, right? So uh, that is covered in the second module. You then look at technological foundations. Like I mentioned, uh, today's current trends are focused on AI, blockchain, cloud computing, which is Amazon Web Services and the Google Cloud Services, and IoT, Information of Things, right? Just like John Deere, the example that I spoke of, they use sensors and monitors, right, to analyze the farmland. Right? You also look at digital platforms and ecosystems. An example of an ecosystem is Apple, right? They basically built a system such that once you buy a MacBook, you end up buying an iPhone, you end up buying AirPods, you end up buying all their products, right? Because all of them are integrated with each other. All of them are talking to each other, right? And that creates a better experience for the user, but that also enhances the chances of subscription and the potential for Apple to make money, right? And also look at cybersecurity and data privacy, which is becoming more and more important as time goes on. We then go into digital transformation roadmap. Again, like I mentioned, right? Planning, things like planning and change management becomes very important because you cannot directly pivot very quickly, considering operations in any business usually get matured with time, right? And making sudden changes will only cause problems. So how do you focus on change management from one iteration of your company to the next? That becomes very important. We then look at, say, success and failures in digital transformation, something that we've discussed right now already, uh, and digital transformation and customer experience, right? The role of customer experience. In short, it's called CX, right? How CX, customer experience, plays a key role, user experience as well, right? In finding out insights and making changes. We then look at industry-specific digital transformations. These are mostly case studies, right? Module 8, right? And finally, module 9 is the future of digital transformation, emerging trends and future predictions, right? The role of AI, as now that ChatGPT is available to all, a lot of companies are integrating ChatGPT into their workflows, right? To make it much more easier. How life looks like in the next 10 years and how you can be prepared for that, right? So that was essentially the module-based learning. There are some key takeaways as well, right? The key highlights. You will be experiencing a facilitator-led session, right? Just like you are having right now. You can ask questions at any point, and facilitators will be super helpful in trying to help you with even your unique cases, right? And these are extremely accomplished facilitators with doctorates and with a lot of experience, right? A lot of experience in their field. So you can ask industry experts for insights and help when it comes to your use case in your business. Again, case study based facilitation for practical learning. You'll also get a lot of quizzes, a lot of engaging activities while you're part in this program, right? Networking opportunities with peers and experts, of course. A lot of your classmates will also be working at management levels in other companies, right? The ability to connect with them is also extreme and intangible, and a global certificate upon course completion, right? So, and of course, the career opportunities, a lot of folks who take this course uh, go on to become consultants, right? Go on to become analysts and strategists, right? You can also become a trainer in different companies, right? Just focused on digital transformation and taking one company at an early stage in their transformation to maturity, right? So these are the course fees, right? Different fees, sort of numbers for each country where this course is available on Digital V Genesis, right? And of course, you'll be getting the brochure as well. And of course, you'll also have someone get in touch with you, right? If you are interested in the course itself, right? And in the brochure, you will also have some contact information in case for any reason we don't get in touch, right? And of course, we are operating Pan Africa as well as other countries like India and Croatia, right? Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it with the brochure. Now, before we sort of are done with the done with the session, I wanted to open the floor for any questions if anyone has any doubts, any questions that they want to ask. You can put it up in the chat and I'll answer, right? We can wait for a minute or two. And then I have a small little game that we can all play, a small little quiz just to see how the class was and did you find any interesting insights, things like that, right? So it's just a 5 question quiz with the last one being rating the class itself. Okay, I think there are no questions. So let me copy the link with everyone. I'm just going to copy it here and paste it. I'm also sharing the code, right? So, folks, you can click on the link. You can join it as a participant. Uh, this is a platform called Quizzes, where you just need to type in your name and enter this QR, enter this code, and then it'll ask you for your name, right? You can give whatever name you want, right? And it's a small little 5 question quiz, right? Once everyone has entered the quiz, I'll then start the quiz and we can conclude this call. Okay? Yeah. Anyone joining? It'll be fun. Come on. I'll just check if there are any questions. Anyone has asked any questions? No, no one has asked any questions. Okay, I'll wait for another 2 minutes. If anyone wants to join the quiz, they can. Otherwise, I'll conclude the call. Okay. Uh, I think that's pretty much it then, Sneha. I think no one is joining the quiz. Uh, we can conclude this call. Sneha? Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think we can conclude the call, Sneha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, one of our representatives will get in touch with you, right? If you're interested in the course, then you can join in and